Well, hey there, internet viewers. I'm here in the studio with Justin Dreger. He's our weekend experience director here at
Yes.
Central. I like to think of him more as a creative director because if there's anything creative that goes on here at Central, Justin's usually the man that does it. So,
Not does it, but I usually have my hand in it somewhere. Yes.
okay, he's got his hand in it.
Yes.
So we're going to take a look at that hand that he's got in some of the creative pieces here because we had a big creative piece this Easter. So, Justin, tell me a little bit about the creative piece that we did and kind of what your hand in that was.
Yeah. Yeah. So this year we kind of set out. I sort of rallied the team and I said, like, I want to do one of the biggest Easter pieces we've ever done. And like from scratch, we were kind of going like, what could this look like? And we were sort of taking direction. We'd already been in the process with our lead pastor, Bill, and we've been kind of just chatting through this idea of really telling the Easter narrative from creation, where we see almost in Genesis chapter 3:15, where, you know, the fall of man, and, you know, there's the serpent, and they eat of this tree, and following through this promise that's immediately given all the way to really to the end of the Bible, but specifically to the resurrection. So we were kind of tasked with how can we creatively help Bill, and that's really, I guess, my philosophy too of the creative process is if it's just creative for the sake of it, it's not really like, it's like banging a gong. It's cool, but it doesn't mean a lot.
Right.
So we wanted to be super true to the story and really rich in the imagery, but really creatively telling the story so that if somebody came in and didn't know Easter, didn't know the story of God, didn't know the Bible, they could go like, wow, that was really a cool way to illustrate it, you know? So,
Right. And sometimes I think when people look at creative pieces in a church, they're like, okay, is this, what's the purpose behind this?
Yes.
And is this just Christian entertainment?
Yeah.
Like, are we just putting on a play for the sake of doing a play? Or is this like actually going to help someone that's coming in understand in a greater context what Bill has just talked
100%.
about? So I think that's exactly what this was about.
Yeah. So we kind of knew we had a headspace on where we wanted to end and sort of how we wanted to feel, but not necessarily what that would look like in between. So we knew we wanted it to end with this super like triumphant, victorious ending, something people could really sing and get a hold of. So we actually ended, if you watch the piece, with this like medley of the song Forever and Ben Canelon tune, The Same Power, something like that. I forget the name of it. Anyways, it was sort of this medley of like, you know, you've overcome the grave, death, where's your sting? And so what led to that was all the way from this image of Genesis chapter 3:15, verse 15, that says, you know, that the serpent will strike your heel, but you will crush its head.
Right.
So it was like we really gravitated to that, like, oh, death, where's your sting? Oh, resurrected King, you know, has been defeated forever. Like that was kind of where we knew we wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And we had to fill in the blank. So
A moment where everyone stands up.
and it was like we could imagine that moment, and we're like, we want people to feel the power of like how great God is. So anyways, that's sort of in between. And then the other things we were inspired by as we talked about that imagery was, funny enough, we were inspired by Taylor Swift. Thank you if you're watching, Taylor. Her Reputation tour on Netflix had all of these things, like these big, massive tribal drums, and we were reading about the battle, you know, between good and evil, and they had this big seraphim like on stage, and I was like, oh, that's amazing. And then they also had these like massive serpents, all in gold, and so we were like, we pretty much took our mood board from Taylor Swift.
Right.
So a lot of people wouldn't know that, but that was sort of our mood board for like feel, look, vibe was like, let's make it look kind of like this, loosely,
but
right?
let's attach like a whole pile of purpose to it.
Yeah, a whole bunch of purpose to it. Because like it looks cool, it's great, but you didn't watch that piece going like, wow, that was incredibly moving to my core of who I am. It was like, oh, that's just, it's cool.
Right.
So anyways, that was some of the, people wouldn't know that, but that's sort of behind the scenes, a little bit of the background behind those images. So
all right, well, let's take a dive in. We've got a computer here so we can kind of take a look at everything that we're going through, and we'll just kind of give some commentary on
beauty.
What basically Justin had a lot to say in what was going on, how things were built, from the projections to the cameras to the lighting, kind of everything from even the dance team.
Yeah.
So if you're curious as to how to accomplish a piece like this, Justin is going to give some insight on how to do that.
So I'll kind of start it. I'll start and stop it, and then I'll just talk about how we got to those certain parts of this. So
Sweet.
I'll kind of start at the beginning here. And so essentially what we started with, I'll just let this play here for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so this initial opening shot here, I'll just stop it real quick. So,
Yeah.
so what you're gonna see is we have a back screen, which we did a 3D render of kind of all of this imagery. We were really inspired by the geometric kind of shapes as well. That sort of made it into the mood board of everything looking like we had this tree and you know the garden, and we wanted it to kind of look just artistically kind of fresh that way.
Yeah.
So we started that, and to fully back up, what we started with was the script. And so before I can go further, I'll just talk about that. So we had a friend of ours named Tom. And again, if you're watching this and you're wondering about creative pieces, you know, I think leveraging people that are amazing at writing is so key. And Tom is like a wordsmith. Like this is my least, you know, I'm least qualified in script writing, and he's phenomenal just his way with words. So he wrote originally the script that was like 20 pages. Like it was ridiculously long. There was no way we could ever. So we wanted it to be like 5. It ended up being like 8. Anyways, so we got that down to like 5 pages. We had to just cut. And the creative process is so good because it just forces you to go like, what's the most important? So, so that's what it started with. And then from the script, we had an original music that was scored by one of our guys on our team. His name's Derek, and he's just a phenomenal producer. He produced all the music to it, scored it, and then did the voiceover with his own voice. So from there, we kind of started down this path. So
even before everything went wrong, there was a threat lurking in the shadows, a weed in the garden.
So what you're going to see here in a second is these are all props that I need to give some props actually to Chantel, who is fantastic on our team making these props. So this is actually a serpent that she made in her garage, which is phenomenal.
Why would God deny them the thrill of the chase? How could he refuse them just one taste? As the juices flowed, total sensory overload, and for a second reality was hard to reckon. Was this death?
So this is
or a
like
dream?
the geometric fruit falling.
Right.
So I'll interject here a little bit too.
Yeah.
What you're seeing as well is a couple things. Number one is all of this is kind of synced through a system called timecode. So we've essentially loaded this video into Ableton Live, which is sort of our way of all of our tracks that we've made that are behind this song or behind the score are coming from that. And the video is also coming. So the video is exactly in sync because it's outputting video. And we just turned it sideways. And then we turned the projector sideways. So what you're seeing is actually a video that we turned 90 degrees to the left. And then it just, when the projector is turned properly, it shows up properly.
And so through this time code, are the lights synced up to that as
yeah.
well?
So Ableton is also sending out a thing called time code, which is a way it's essentially a high frequency sound that the lighting board can interpret. And then we program cues exactly along with all of this piece so that it sounds like and looks.
After you press play, it's kind of running.
Press play,
There's
it
no
starts it.
human error to be relied on. Sweet.
Condemned to crawl in the dust.
So
Serpent wryly smiled.
what's kind of cool too is this dance team is a team that we're connected to in Toronto, and they're all professional dancers. They're just phenomenal. And what we did was we sent them this voiceover with the original score and the video, and we said, hey, can you create something to this? And they just went back and forth on iPhone videos. I'd give feedback and say, hey, like, this doesn't quite work, or that won't work well on live on stage with cameras. So anyways.
So it kind of worked through the choreography of that.
Exactly.
Sibling rivalry, fueled by jealousy and madness, murder and malice, grief and shame, conquerors and slaves, floods and famine. Never before imagined violence and lust. It was humanity that seemed to be crawling in the dust, chasing that.
So all that kind of stuff you can't do perfectly in time if you're not in time code.
All the lights come in. Yeah.
For destruction. And just when it seemed things couldn't get worse, the serpent and his curse returned. As he wormed his way into
So again, this is the battle between good and evil. What you're seeing kind of here is Numbers, the story of Numbers 21
hundreds of fiery
that we're telling creatively.
Right.
after another.
And on the back screen, you've got the snake kind of slithering
snake slithering
through.
back into the camp, the fiery helpers. This is them praying that God would take them away. And then you see them praying, and you have this now in a second right here.
Take away these snakes from us.
You see the cross being lifted up.
With compassion, God
Yeah.
ordered them to fashion a replica of the snake and hang it.
With the serpent on it. again alluding to Jesus. So,
Now that screen in the back,
yep.
We're projecting a sideways image,
Yeah.
but what's making that screen?
So that screen is literally just drywall on steel studs that we've mounted to. We've kind of like a pipe grid,
Yeah.
a gas pipe grid on the back, and everything's kind of mounted to that. All of our light bars, all of our, pretty much anything that's back there is on that grid. So we just put it right straight to it, and then we did a drop to reveal it when Bill started his message.
Right,
So,
there was a curtain in front
Exactly.
of it, and that came
Yep.
down. And the video that's actually being played on the
Yes.
screen there, we don't have anyone in-house
That's
that
true.
is necessarily able to make something like that.
Yep.
So how did you go about
yes.
making a video
So
like that?
this is the challenge when you have like dreams of what something you want it to look like, and then reality of what you can do
Yeah.
and what those around you. Like I don't know anyone who does 3D like artistry, 3D
If
video.
you do, hit us up.
Yeah, we'd love for you to
'cause-
message me because we could use your help.
And we need an intro graphic for this show, actually. So
Totally. So this video, what I ended up doing, and again, this is just super cool looking at it now, but
yeah.
I want to talk about those drums in a second
Okay,
as well.
I'll bring it back to it.
Anyways, so I ended up looking online. I looked through literally hundreds of guys on. I was on a website called Upwork.com, and again, you could kind of find people who do anything that you want,
Yeah.
especially in the digital world. So I looked through all of these guys, and I put out this. You essentially tender out the job, and then people will write back and say, I'm interested. But this guy sent me geometric shapes of exactly what I was looking for in stills, and they look
Okay.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And this turned out this guy had done work for Pixar and Disney, not Pixar, Pixar and Disney, and he was really great. So I said, hey, could you try this? And the guy's from India, so we were able to go back and forth.
Right.
And it was really cool.
Yeah.
And I could say like, hey, could you try this? And it just worked out really great. So
Super cool. So you posted that.
Posted
we need
the
a video
job
like
for that,
this,
yep.
and they responded.
and
to
he
it,
responded, and
you select that person.
yeah. So I've done a couple of those. Some of them are better than others, certain artists.
Right.
But you kind of learn to look for what you're looking for. So.
For sure.
So this is kind of the final scene here.
The bad guys think they've won.
Yep. And so you can see the serpent kind of lingering here. And then we introduce the dove, which again is a symbol for, purity, for the transfigured Jesus kind of thing.
Right.
So here we actually had a costume built for Jesus. It's sort of like the transfigured Jesus, I guess,
Yeah.
this part of the scene. And we see him emerge, and this is kind of where it now begins to turn, so it builds into the song.
Yeah.
So, anyways, these
And
drums.
then the dove lands on the snake. And
Yeah, that's right.
Just in case. Couldn't see it super
Yes. So that's cool. Chantel did, again, an amazing job getting that built. And she also did these two drums, which are now off the stage, which sucks because I can't talk about them. But
Yeah.
anyways, essentially those drums were like, we couldn't find anywhere to rent these drums or buy them. So we're like, maybe if we can just build them. So she went into her garage with her husband. They welded up a frame, put a bunch of
Yeah.
wood around it, and then we printed vinyl and put grommets in it. A vinyl, what looked like a drum skin, and
Yeah.
just tightened it on. Built a bass, and so that sounds very fast. That was many nights in a
Right.
garage for them, but
Sounds like it went up one night.
Yeah.
And so were those drums like functional? Like they were banging on
They-
the
they would make
drums?
a
Would they
thud.
make a sound, or was that dubbed over?
it was So what you're hearing is actually this. Like you're hearing like Perna on the drums,
Right.
And so this is the moment we were like working so hard to that it would get to here, and it would just like this was the apex. So again, we did the lyric video out of Ableton. So that's like busy. It's like really
Yeah.
putting emphasis on the cross of the grave and
Yeah.
the resurrected King. So
You were mentioning that in Ableton before to me
Yeah.
that you had like multiple tracks and
Yeah.
layers that you'd actually gone
Yeah.
through to make this sound even better.
Totally.
Live.
So even right there, what you're hearing is the worship team all went into the studio like a couple weeks before this, and they just rocked out these choir vocals that were just monstrous.
Right.
So those are actually going down a track out of Ableton that you're hearing in this mix, but in the room you're hearing it actually surround sound. So you're hearing all of that
Oh.
choir come behind you.
Yeah.
And it sounds like people's vocals are like they're just giving her.
They're
So it's
really booming.
yeah,
through.
like it's so cool. And
Right.
so I didn't actually mention all of this piece was also mixed in surround sound. So you're hearing like the snake slither like it actually
Right.
goes around you. You're hearing it from behind you.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Which you could feel in
the
the
room.
event,
Yeah.
not as much through your iPhone
Exactly.
speakers or
Yeah.
MacBook speakers, but
100%.
I think it still sounds cool.
Yeah.
So,
So then Rebecca did also another one of our team members that does work for us. She did this lyric video that just kind of came out of the creative piece. So that one we did in-house.
right.
And then again, that's just synced to Ableton, so it's perfect every time. There's no
Yeah.
worrying about it being out of sync. So that was what was really nice about running video and audio out of Ableton. So
That's sweet.
yeah, so that's kind of this piece. I think that's pretty much all there was.
And that's how you run
Yeah.
an awesome creative piece for your next Easter 2020.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Justin. I hope that gave some insights into kind of some of the creative
Yeah.
pieces of
Go be creative.
how you can become a creative director too, just like Justin. And I hope this gave you some insights. And I don't know if there is going to be another episode.
I don't know.
we
This
don't
could just
know,
be a one-off, but
it's
thank you so much.
Probably just a one-off,
Yes.
but we'll see you when we see you.
If people are interested, we'll do more. But thanks so much for watching.
Cool. Thank you. See ya.